Hello everybody, welcome to Short Shot Archery. Anthony here, and today we're doing a subscriber requested video, and that is what are the essential pieces of archery equipment you need in your kit. And of course it was based on, they wanted to know my opinion on it, so I have compiled a list of items that I think are the most essential and my reasoning behind them, plus some additional bonus items. This is the bare minimum, folks. This is just to get you, through your tournament or if you're traveling somewhere like I am. I'm going on vacation soon, and I'm looking to shoot a couple days on vacation, but the airline has really strict weight rules. I think my case can only be like 40 pounds, so that means I need to slim it down a lot. So this video is perfect, and the timing of this question is perfect because I'm slimming down my case and I'm breaking it down to the essential parts, and that way I can share it with all of you. So let's get into it. Okay, so piece of equipment number one, your bow case. If you're not going to bring your bow case, you definitely risk damaging your equipment or something going missing, especially if you take your bow apart into pieces, and that just provides a lot of hassle. For me, I'm going to be flying somewhere. There is no way I'm going to fly somewhere and not bring a bow case, because the airline will completely destroy your stuff, especially your archery equipment. They just toss that stuff around. So for me, this is an essential piece of equipment. I will not go anywhere without my bow case, and it's just a great way of holding all my gear. And of course, the big one is keeping it safe. Next up, we kind of have a give me. I assume most people would expect, you do need your bow. A bow stand is very helpful, just to keep your bow off the ground. Of course, you want your full setup, your riser, your limbs, your string. Only one string, I think, because to me, if your riser or string or limbs go, if you're doing a minimum thing, you might as well just pack it all up anyway, because that's just a disaster if any of those break. And they shouldn't. Your equipment should be pretty reliable. Same thing with stabilizers and sights. I'm just bringing one of each. I'm bringing one sight pin, one top weight, one plunger, one clicker, one arrow rest. All of these pieces of equipment are ultra reliable. There's nothing that's going to break on them, at least fingers crossed. It shouldn't happen, and if it does, it's that 1 in a million chance, and you just happen to have some seriously bad luck that day. So since this is a minimalist, setup, and the bare minimum you can bring to a tournament, one bow is fine, and one of all your major components is fine. Let's move on to the additional gear. Now, the right-hand piece of equipment to your bow, in my opinion, would be your quiver, a chest protector if that's something that works for you. Now, some people will say, well, you don't really need a chest protector. Yes and no. If it's something you're used to shooting with, and you tend to have shirts that will blow a little bit in the wind, or if it's just windy, why let something like that affect your tournament, especially if it's something you're used to shooting with? I'm looking at this as a way of keeping your shooting experience, the tournament, flowing as easily as possible. It really doesn't matter if you have two bows or not, unless one breaks, then it matters. But not shooting with your chest protector and having your shirt blow all over, and it being something you're not used to, that's negatively affecting your tournament, and it's something that's a lot more common than a major piece of equipment breaking. Along with that, arrows. There's not a full dozen here, but I would definitely have an arrow tube with the full dozen in my bow case. 12 arrows is going to be enough, in my opinion, especially when we check out some of the little pieces of gear that I have next on this list, and you'll understand why and how you can get away with only bringing 12 arrows to a tournament. Besides that, I'm bringing one arm guard, one finger tab, and one finger sling. You could bring doubles of the finger sling and the finger tab, because it is a tough piece of equipment if you happen to lose it. But again, since this is my list, I would just bring one of each. I've never had a problem, knock on, you know, tile, with them going anywhere or anything happening to them. So that really cuts down on some of the weight too, because brass finger tabs are pretty heavy. Yeah, they don't weigh a couple pounds, but everything adds up overall. So other than that, we're pretty covered there. Of course, arrow puller is nice. You don't want to, be wearing out your hands, especially if you're not used to pulling arrows, barehanded. I always use an arrow puller. It makes the process so much easier. And, there was an incident a long time ago where I did pull an arrow that was actually cracked and I didn't realize it. And you end up getting splinters in your hand, and carbon splinters are super nasty. So I will pretty much never pull arrows without an arrow puller unless I know they're going to pull super easy and I'm not concerned. So now let's move on to some smaller pieces of equipment just to keep everything going at the tournament. Okay, so we got a fairly good sized pile of gear on this table here, and I'm just going to pick them up and explain why. First, sunglasses. For me, I always shoot in sunglasses, especially if it's outdoors. And since this is outdoor season, this setup is a little more geared to outdoors. If it was indoors, you don't need sunglasses, but outdoors you do, at least in my my world. Next up, Allen keys, both metric and standard, or US. You need these. There's at least several components on your bow, your plunger, your finger tab that are probably going to use Allen keys. It's good to have them. When I said before about not bringing like a backup bow or a backup string, those things don't usually fail. But on the other side, little things like screws and stuff love to come loose, and they love to come loose at the most inopportune times. So I always bring things to tighten things, such as Allen keys or a flathead screwdriver and a Phillips head screwdriver. I would bring both of those, one of each, just to cover you on all those bases, because it would be really terrible to go somewhere and have screws loose and not be able to fix them right away and then just screw up your whole day. Next up, we need some things to maintain our string just a little bit, and the big one for me is knocking points. Sometimes they do move, they wear out. It's kind of expected because you can see the wear, but sometimes it isn't, and they'll slide or what have you. So some knocking point thread, got some BCY halo serving here, some fire to maybe melt that down, a knife to go and trim or cut that BCY string, and that's going to definitely save you on the knocking point end of things. And it's just just that maintenance. It's about keeping that all together and allowing your tournament to run smoothly, because it would really suck for your knocking point to fall apart and now you can't shoot because you have nowhere to knock your arrow because you didn't bring any material to fix that. Just little things that can really throw off your day is what I'm trying to cover. Same thing with nocks, and of course there's pins here, but especially nocks. If you knock an arrow, you can put a new pin on it, and then that arrow's still good to go. Granted, as long as you don't destroy the arrow or really mess up the pin or things like that. You're also bringing a dozen arrows. You're only shooting 6, so you have 6 more in reserve if something terrible were to happen to those first 6. And if you hit a couple knocks, you can replace them, and that just lets you to continue on a lot easier than it would be without them. Other than that, some little housekeeping things would be a stringer's kind of handy. Yeah, you can technically string your bow without a stringer, but if you're inexperienced in it, it's a great way to launch the limbs off your bow, hurt yourself, which is usually what happens most often, or in the off chance, people do actually end up twisting their limbs on their bow by improperly stringing their bow consistently. So that's something you can avoid easily with a stringer. And last but not least, 2 things. If it's a tournament, you may need to label your arrows with your initials, or maybe number them just so you can keep track of them. And it's always good to be courteous and actually bring a pen, not only to mark arrows that are in the target, but maybe even do the paper scoring if that is, your job when you're downrange at that tournament. Other than that, that pretty much wraps up, in my mind, the bare minimum requirements you need. Maybe one other additional thing would be your gear for like your plunger. I have a biter plunger, so there's a nice little package that comes with a little screwdriver for it and a wrench. Maybe you want to pack that with the rest of this gear. But other than that, I can't really think of anything else that comes to mind, and I've been thinking about this for quite some time now. But if I did miss something that's really important, let me know in the comments section down below. I kind of like to hear what you guys have to say about it. I probably missed something that's fairly important, but at this point in time, it's not coming to mind. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. I really had a good time putting this all together, and it just works out so well with me going away and just how I was going to do this anyway. So I'm glad people were interested in this video. I would really like to do more of these subscriber videos in the future, so if anybody has any ideas, let me know in the comments section down below, and I'll do my best to make it happen. Not guaranteeing anything, because sometimes things just don't work out. But other than that, thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe, and as always, happy shooting!